A 10-minute wait? What do you mean a 10-minute wait? I booked this massage 2 weeks ago. The woman's voice cut through the lobby like a blade, sharp with disbelief and barely restrained irritation. Her designer handbag hit the front desk with a heavy thud, loud enough to make the man in the beige polo shirt standing nearby flinch. He adjusted his baseball hat in an attempt to look casual, but his eyes were fixed on a row of essential oils by the window, pretending like they were the most fascinating thing he'd ever seen. That man was Jacob Fairley, the founder and CEO of one of the fastest-growing boutique spa chains in America. But no one here recognized him. Gone was the clean-shaven jaw and sleek tailored suit. In its place was a scruffy, uneven beard and a head of salt and pepper hair hidden beneath a discount store cap. His usual polished appearance had been swapped out for wrinkled khakis and a pair of sneakers that cost less than $30. Clothes he would never have worn in his former life. Today, he wasn't a CEO. He was a brand new front desk trainee assigned to their Glendale location, the only one of their 8 spas he had never set foot in. 15 years ago, Jacob had started this company in a single rented room in a forgotten strip mall. He'd cleaned his own floors, folded every towel by hand, and greeted every guest himself. Now, with 8 full-service spas across 3 states, he barely recognized the operation that bore his name. On paper, Glendale looked fine. At least the reports said so. Nothing urgent, nothing glaring. But something didn't sit right. Jacob had learned long ago to trust his instincts. They were the reason he went from renting 1 room to running an empire. Glendale had the highest employee turnover and the lowest return rate of clients in the entire company. The regional manager blamed it on foot traffic, location issues, but Jacob didn't buy it. He knew the only way to find out was to show up in person. Luckily, no one at Glendale had ever met him. The company had grown so fast that most of the newer staff had never even seen his photo, let alone shaken his hand. So, dressed like a lost temp hire and carrying the demeanor of someone fresh out of training, Jacob was invisible enough to observe everything and everyone. The voice sliced through the hallway like a whip. "Breaks over, let's go." Jacob turned. It was Megan, the location manager. If he remembered correctly from the staffing chart, she'd only been in this role for 6 months. Her black bob haircut was as sharp as her tone, clipboard in hand and heels clicking impatiently. She didn't even glance to make sure he was following as she walked back to the staff area. In the break room, she shoved a paper into his hand. "This is your intake checklist," she said flatly. "You don't need to explain the services. Just check guests in, assign them a room, and make sure the massage therapists are looped in. Got it?" "Got it," Jacob nodded. She gave him a hard look. "And don't improvise. The last guy thought he was some kind of wellness guru. Spent more time talking than working. We don't need that energy here." Jacob forced a smile. Understood. The front desk was more chaotic than he'd expected. The computer system lagged constantly, far from the seamless performance he'd been promised in demo videos. The phone rang non-stop. Megan hovered beside him, correcting every other move he made. At one point she snapped, "Faster! This is check-in, not a therapy session." But Jacob barely heard her. His attention was elsewhere. Standing beside him was a young woman, maybe mid-20s, with her hair piled in a messy bun and deep shadows under her eyes. Her name tag read Riley. She greeted every guest with a calm, almost serene tone. Even the rude ones, her smile never faltered. But Jacob noticed something no one else did. Each time she turned away, she rubbed her temples like she was fighting off a splitting headache. Later that afternoon, when the lobby had finally quieted down, he overheard her speaking on the phone. She was seated behind the counter, back turned slightly, voice low and frayed. "No, Mom, I can't take another ER bill. They already sent the collections notice. If I miss one more payment, they're going to garnish my paycheck. I'm trying, I swear I'm trying." Jacob stood completely still behind the retail shelf, pretending to organize lotion bottles while his chest tightened. His hands were trembling. Just last year, he had made the call to cut costs by switching most entry-level roles to part-time. The math made sense. Fewer benefits, easier shift management, flexible staffing. But no spreadsheet had ever told him that a front desk receptionist would be forced to work 2 jobs and still be drowning in unpaid medical bills. Later that day, Megan pulled him aside again. "You're too slow, and stop hovering around Riley. She's been too distracted lately. I don't need her dragging anyone else down." Jacob's jaw clenched. "She seems like she's doing fine." Megan scoffed. "She's sweet, sure, but sweet doesn't keep customers happy. This is a business, not a charity." Jacob didn't respond. Not out loud. But something inside him shifted. That night, Jacob sat alone in his car, parked outside the Glendale Spa for over an hour. He didn't turn on the engine, didn't reach for his phone, just stared out the windshield, hands resting on the steering wheel. He had built this company with the belief that it could be a place of healing, for clients, for staff, for anyone who walked through its doors. But tonight, as he sat in silence outside a place where one of his employees was barely surviving under policies he himself had signed off on, he felt like a stranger to his own mission. He felt like a fraud. But that wasn't the end of it. It was the beginning of something else. He made a decision. Tomorrow, he would return. And this time, he would stop watching from the sidelines. He would dig until he found out what was really broken. And he wouldn't leave until it was fixed. Jacob didn't say a word. He just gave a small nod and turned away. That night, he sat alone in his car for over an hour, parked in the far corner of the lot behind the Glendale Spa. He didn't check his phone, didn't listen to music, just sat there, eyes locked on the steering wheel, as if waiting for something to break the silence inside him. He had built this place, this entire brand, as a sanctuary, a space where healing happened, for the clients, for the staff, for anyone who stepped through those doors. But now, having just witnessed one of his own employees pushed so close to breaking point while no one batted an eye, Jacob felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt like a fraud. The next morning, Jacob returned to the spa 15 minutes before opening. The sun had barely touched the sky, casting only a faint silver over the still sleepy parking lot. Most of the spaces were empty, except one. In the furthest corner sat a beat-up hatchback, its rear bumper held together by strips of silver duct tape. Riley's car. He didn't approach until she'd gone inside. The spa still smelled faintly of eucalyptus and lemon oil. The air was still, the lobby lights dimmed, bathed only in the soft glow of wall sconces. At the front desk, Riley was already at work, wiping the countertop in clean, practiced motions. She moved with the rhythm of someone who wasn't doing a job out of passion, but out of sheer necessity. The kind of movement that said, "I have no other choice." A few minutes later, Megan entered, heels clicking on the tile exactly 2 minutes before opening. She didn't greet anyone. Her eyes never left the clipboard in her hand. "We're short again," she muttered. Jenny called out, "Riley, you're doing laundry runs between clients, restocking product inventory and prepping room 4. Let's get moving." Jacob raised his hand slightly. "Should we consider delaying a few appointments?" "That's a lot for one person." Megan didn't even look up. "No. We're not losing revenue because people don't show up for work. Figure it out." Jacob turned to Riley. She'd already turned away, disappearing toward the back. Her face was unreadable. Numb. That morning spiraled quickly. The client arrived early for a facial, but the esthetician wasn't ready. Riley dashed back and forth between the laundry and front desk so many times Jacob lost count. At one point she dropped a box of essential oils. A shattered bottle sliced open her palm. Blood soaked through the paper towel she wrapped hastily around the cut, but she never stopped moving, never complained. Jacob tried to help, again and again, but Megan blocked him each time. "Eshin, you're not trained on inventory," she barked. "We can't afford mistakes." By noon, the waiting area was packed. Jacob was checking in a pregnant woman for a prenatal massage when he noticed room 2 hadn't been adjusted yet. The massage table was still in default position. "I can fix it," he offered. "No," Megan snapped. "Clients don't want strangers rearranging their space. Go clean the humidifiers." "That's going to take a while," Jacob said carefully. "Then work faster." Later, in the break room, Jacob found Riley sitting on the floor with her back against the fridge, eyes closed. The makeshift bandage on her hand had soaked through with blood. He crouched down next to her. "You okay?" She opened her eyes slowly, her voice barely a whisper. "Just need 5 minutes. I'll be fine. You should get back out there." He looked at her hand. "That cut. You should take care of it properly." "I already asked," she said. "If I leave the floor again, they'll pull me from next week's schedule." Jacob stared at her. "That can't possibly be company policy." She gave a small, bitter laugh, more breath than sound. "Here. The policy is whatever Megan says it is." He stood, opened the first aid kit and handed her a fresh bandage, then sat down beside her. "You ever think about quitting?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she unwrapped the bloodied paper towel, flinching slightly as it pulled against the cut. "Every week," she admitted. "But I can't, not right now." He didn't press, just nodded thoughtfully. "If you could change one thing about this place," he asked gently, "what would it be?" She looked at him with quiet surprise. The kind of surprise that comes from being asked something no one's ever cared to ask before. Fewer walk-ins when we're short-staffed, smarter scheduling, and someone who actually listens. Before Jacob could respond, the break room door burst open. Megan stood in the doorway, cold eyes locked on them both. "I don't recall approving a break," she said. Jacob stood. She was just bandaging her hand. Megan sneered. "She's not a child. If she can't handle a little cut, maybe this isn't the right job for her." Riley stood quickly. "I'm going back now." "No," Megan snapped. "You're going home. This isn't working out anymore." Jacob stepped between them. "You're firing her?" "She's not reliable," Megan said. "I need people who can keep up." "No," Jacob said, his voice low, steady, final. "What you want is people you can bully into meeting your numbers." Megan narrowed her eyes. "Who do you think you are?" "I'm Jacob Fairley." The room fell completely still. Riley's mouth parted in shock. Megan went pale. Jacob took off his cap and set it on the counter. "I started this company," he said quietly. "And I just watched you fire one of the only people holding this place together." Megan opened her mouth, but no sound came. She didn't need to say anything. The look in Jacob's eyes said it all. Her time here was over. Megan stammered, caught off guard. This isn't how we do things. You don't understand the pressure." "I do," Jacob cut her off, his voice low and firm. "I built this place with my own hands. I've scrubbed floors, folded towels, done late-night laundry runs when staff didn't show. But not once did I treat anyone the way you just did." Her tone softened, trying to reel the moment back. "Let's not blow this out of proportion. It's been a tough week, that's all." Jacob shook his head slowly. "You've created a culture where people live in fear, where someone like Riley, who shows up early, covers every shift, works through pain, is punished for bleeding on the job. With nowhere left to hide, Megan fell silent. Jacob turned to Riley. "You're not fired," he said. "You're going home for the day, with pay. And if you want to come back tomorrow, you'll be full-time." Riley's lips parted, but no sound came. She stood frozen, as if her body couldn't catch up to her mind. The weight of the past weeks, maybe months, held her in place. Jacob turned back to Megan, his tone no longer just calm, it was final. "You're done here. Pack your things. HR will be in contact within the hour." Megan opened her mouth as if to argue, but the look in Jacob's eyes, steady, unwavering, stopped her cold. There was no negotiation here. No saving face. She turned without another word, and the door closing behind her felt like a curtain falling on a toxic era. Jacob sat down in the break room, exhaling deeply, as though he'd finally set down a weight he hadn't realized he'd been carrying for far too long. Riley still stood there, her eyes filled with something not quite nameable. Shock, relief, uncertainty, maybe all of it. "You okay?" Jacob asked gently. She nodded, slow and cautious. I think so. "You're stronger than you realize," he told her. "Most people would have walked away a long time ago." "I couldn't afford to walk away," she whispered, no bitterness in her voice, just cold, quiet truth. "You shouldn't have had to," Jacob said. Then, pulling out his phone, he added, "We're closing the spa for the day. I'll call and cancel the appointments myself." Riley blinked, stunned. "Wait, you're serious?" "As serious as it gets." He looked around the worn-out break room, the peeling paint, the humming fridge, the forgotten microwave blinking the wrong time. "This place needs to be reset from the inside out, and I'm not leaving until it becomes what I always intended it to be." Riley gave a small, exhausted smile, but it was real. "You're not what I expected. Neither is this job," Jacob replied. Then he stood, extended a hand, and said, "Let's fix it together." The next morning, the Glendale spa remained closed. Jacob arrived before dawn and unlocked the doors himself. At midnight, he had sent out an internal memo announcing the location would suspend all operations for 72 hours to undergo a full facility audit and a top-down review of staffing structure. Every employee had been told to stay home with full pay. Only Jacob and Riley were there that morning. He started his walkthrough alone, clipboard in hand, inspecting the spa room by room. For the first time, he was truly seeing the place, not through charts and clean-cut reports, but with his own eyes. The massage tables were unevenly maintained. Some bolsters were torn, others sagged from overuse. The aromatherapy cabinet in room 5 was stocked with expired oils. Room 3 had a faulty dimmer switch. The lights flickered every time it dimmed below a certain setting. In the hallway near the employee lockers, a brown water stain stretched across the ceiling, unreported. By 7 a.m., Riley arrived, hand properly bandaged now. "I didn't think you'd actually come back," she said, watching Jacob crouch near the baseboards. "I said I would stay until it's right." She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "You're not like other executives. They send out surveys. You're in here checking drywall." Jacob smirked and jotted something on the clipboard. "Surveys don't tell you when the towel warmer's being held together with duct tape." Riley laughed under her breath. "You should see the one in the staff room. It leaks and makes this horrible bubbling noise, like it's boiling frogs." Jacob glanced at her, amused. "Did you ever report it?" "I tried. Sent an email, never got a reply." He nodded and made another note. By mid-morning, they sat in the break room again, sharing a fresh pot of coffee. For the first time since he'd met her, Riley looked at ease. Not carefree, but not bracing for the next blow. "Do you still want to work here?" Jacob asked. She hesitated. I used to think I didn't have a choice. I'm asking now because I want to rebuild this place the right way. But I don't want people to stay here out of fear. I want them to stay because they believe in it. Riley met his gaze, weighing his sincerity. If it really changes, I'd stay. Jacob leaned back, warm coffee in hand. It will change. Just then, the front door chimed. Jacob stood and walked out to find a man in his 30s holding a folder. "Trevor," he said. "HR, you asked for a compliance audit." They walked into what used to be Megan's office. Her mess was still there. Shift logs, supplier invoices, and a stack of unsigned time-off requests. Trevor opened the folder. First red flag. She manually altered tip records in the payroll system. It looks like she docked tips from receptionists anytime there was a client complaint, even when it wasn't their fault. Jacob's jaw tensed. "It gets worse," Trevor continued. "She reassigned Riley's hours to a floating staff code for 2 weekends last month, which means Riley clocked in but wasn't paid." Jacob stood abruptly. "Issue full back pay today. Add a hardship bonus." "There's more," Trevor said grimly. She used performance notes to block employees from hitting the threshold for benefits. Every time someone neared full-time eligibility, she issued a warning. Tardy here, missed towel roll there, just enough to reset their hours. Jacob closed his eyes, grief and fury intermingling. How did this not trigger a flag? He filed the warnings under employee development, not formal discipline. It bypassed the alerts. Jacob opened his eyes. How many people were affected? At least 4, Riley the most consistently. Jacob turned toward the window. Outside, the eucalyptus trees swayed gently in the breeze, oblivious to the quiet wreckage unfolding inside. Contact every one of them today, adjust their hours, reinstate benefits, and issue formal apologies. Trevor nodded. "Start with Riley?" Jacob shook his head. "No, that's mine." He found her in the supply closet, reorganizing shelves like no one had asked her to stop. "You don't have to be doing that," Jacob said gently. Riley glanced over her shoulder. "I know, but if I don't, someone else will be told to." He stepped inside. "I need to tell you something." Her brow furrowed, instinctively guarded. "You were underpaid. Megan manipulated the system to avoid giving you insurance. She reassigned your hours and issued fake infractions to block your eligibility." Riley didn't speak at first. Her face was blank. Then, slowly, her eyes narrowed. "Are you serious?" Jacob nodded. "You'll get full back pay. Insurance starts immediately. And we're building a new oversight system so this never happens again." She leaned against the wall and let out a long, slow breath. "I thought I was just unlucky." "You weren't," he said quietly. "You were targeted." She stared at him for a long time. "Why are you telling me this yourself?" Jacob met her eyes without flinching. "Because I owe you the truth, and because I want people like you to stay, not because you have to, but because you choose to." Riley looked away. "I'll think about it." "I hope you do." "It's true," Jacob said. "You'll receive full back pay. Your health insurance starts immediately, and we're putting in new oversight to make sure this never happens again." Riley leaned back against the wall, letting out a breath so deep it was as if she'd finally let go of something heavy that had been pressing on her chest for months. "He always thought I was just unlucky," she murmured. "You weren't," Jacob replied. "You were targeted." She looked at him for a long time. The question hung between them before she finally asked it. "Why are you the one telling me this?" "Because I owe you the truth," Jacob said. "And because I need people like you to stay. Not out of guilt, not because you feel trapped, but because you choose to." She turned her face slightly, avoiding eye contact. "I'll think about it." "I hope you do," Jacob said softly. That afternoon, Jacob initiated an emergency video conference with every manager across the company's network of spas. He began without preamble. His voice was calm, but carried weight. "I've just spent 2 days inside one of our own locations," he said, "and what I saw, it violated everything this company was supposed to stand for." He paused, letting the silence land. "As of today, any act of manipulating hours, withholding benefits, or intimidating employees will result in immediate termination. No warnings, no second chances, no excuses." Silence. Every manager on the screen sat still, not one daring to speak. But it wasn't the silence of confusion, it was the silence of realization. Jacob looked directly into the camera, his expression unwavering. "We're also launching a new internal hotline, anonymous and direct to me, no chain of command. If someone is being mistreated, I want to know. No more hiding behind titles." Still no one spoke. The meeting ended without questions. Back at Glendale, as the sun began to dip lower in the sky, Jacob did one last walkthrough of the spa before locking up for the night. Riley was still there, wiping down one of the counters at the front desk. She looked up as he passed. "You should head home," he said gently. "I will," she nodded. He paused near the door. "You're getting a new manager next week. Someone from our Denver location. I trust her." Riley nodded, a sense of calm in her face. "Thanks for not giving that job to another Megan. I won't make that mistake twice." She turned back to her task, and Jacob stepped outside. The evening air had cooled. The sky had taken on a faint orange glow, like the world was exhaling after a long, tight breath. Jacob stood beside his car, staring at the soft light spilling from the spa's front windows. He had seen the worst of what his company had become. Now came the harder part, making sure it never happened again. 2 weeks later, Glendale Spa reopened without fanfare. No press release, no ribbon-cutting ceremony, just a new sign taped to the door. Now under new management. Jacob stood outside at sunrise, a cup of hot coffee in hand. He wasn't dressed down anymore. No baseball cap, no beard, no disguise. Just a crisp shirt, clean shave, and the quiet presence of someone who'd remembered who he was. But the sneakers remained. They reminded him what it felt like to stand behind that front desk and feel invisible. Inside, the spa was calm, peaceful. The gentle sound of the water feature in the lobby created a soft rhythm, like a heartbeat. Jacob checked his watch. 30 minutes until the first appointment. Right on time, Camille, the new manager, arrived. No makeup, no clipboard, just a steady step and a quiet morning before she unlocked the office and disappeared inside. She had come from the Denver location, one of their best performing sites. She'd taken a voluntary demotion to be here. When Jacob asked her why, her answer had been simple. "I'd rather build something clean from the ground up than inherit something polished that's already rotten." Riley arrived not long after. Her shoulders were straighter, her eyes clearer. She wore a forest green cardigan, black flats, and her hair down. For the first time since Jacob had met her, Camille greeted her with a nod. "Glad you're early. Let's walk the floor together." They disappeared down the hallway, already discussing appointment flow and front desk coverage. Jacob didn't follow. He didn't need to anymore. He trusted Camille, and he'd watched Riley slowly reclaim her footing in the days following the audit. She was still quiet, still cautious, but no longer carrying the weight of dread every time she walked through the door. By 10 a.m., the lobby was full. The difference was undeniable. Guests were greeted by name, appointments ran on time, staff took short, scheduled breaks instead of stealing them between fires. The air that had once been thick with tension now felt light. Jacob sat in a quiet corner, laptop open, scanning new operations reports. He wasn't hiding, The Glendale team knew exactly who he was, but they treated him like one of their own. Not a figurehead, not a threat. Camille stepped into the lobby, holding a pair of worn sandals. These were left in room 4. Jacob stood. "I'll run them out." "You sure?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "I need the steps." Outside, a woman in her 60s was halfway to her car. "Ma'am," he called. She turned as he approached, sandals in hand. "Oh, thank you," she said, surprised. "I didn't even realize I left them." "No trouble at all," Jacob said, handing them to her. She glanced back at the building. "Feels different in there. Calmer. Kinder." "We're trying something new," Jacob said with a small smile. "Well, it's working." Inside, Camille was wrapping up a meeting with the front desk team. "We've got a freelance therapist starting Saturdays," she said. "Not full-time, but it'll ease the pressure. I'm also reviewing 2 new front desk applicants." Riley chimed in. "Can we shift the freelance hours to afternoons? Saturdays get slammed around then." Camille didn't hesitate. "Good call. I'll adjust it." Jacob watched the interaction unfold. No posturing, no power struggles, just clarity, respect, communication. That afternoon, a client canceled last minute. Jacob took the open slot and walked into room 2. Louis, the same middle-aged massage therapist, was already setting up, adjusting the linens without a word. Jacob lay face down on the table, ambient music humming above him. Halfway through the session, Louis broke the silence. "We didn't think you'd come back." Jacob didn't answer immediately. "Most people in your position," Louis added, "Uri, would have written this place off, shut it down." Jacob lay still, eyes closed, breath steady. "I didn't build this company to be profitable," he said. "I built it to be good. Somewhere along the way, I let those things drift apart." Louis didn't respond. He just kept working, his hands firm but gentle. After a long pause, Jacob finally spoke, his voice soft, honest. "I didn't build this company to chase profit. I built it to do what's right. Somewhere along the way, I let those 2 things drift apart." Louis didn't say anything. He didn't need to. He just continued his work, hands steady, presence calm. There was no judgment, just understanding. After the session, Jacob sat up, stretched slightly, and looked at the man who'd just helped him more than he probably realized. "Thank you," he said quietly. Louis gave a small nod and wheeled the laundry cart down the hallway, already back in rhythm. In the break room, Riley sat at the corner table, unwrapping a homemade sandwich from foil. She looked up as Jacob walked in. "You're still here?" "I like the coffee," Jacob replied with a small grin. She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that only shows up when the soul has had a moment to rest. "Camille's strict, but she's fair." "That's why I brought her in," Jacob said, leaning against the counter. Riley folded the foil neatly. "My mom called today," said the collection agency backed off. Jacob raised his eyebrows, hopeful. "That's good news." I paid off the bill. The back pay covered most of it. "I'm glad," he said, and he meant it. There was a brief silence, not heavy, just full. Then Riley said, "Camille asked if I'd be interested in taking on an assistant manager role, just part-time for now." Jacob nodded. "And what did you say?" "I said yes." He smiled, not the tight, polite kind, but the proud kind. "You're going to be good at it." "I hope so." The sun had dipped lower. The warm, golden hues outside had turned cooler, softer. The final client left the building, the chime above the door ringing one last time for the day. Camille locked the front door and gave a thumbs up through the glass. Jacob turned to Riley. "You ready for more responsibility?" She paused, thought about it, then replied simply but powerfully, "Only if I can make it better for the next person." Jacob nodded, his voice warm. That's the right answer. She slung her bag over her shoulder. See you tomorrow. Get some rest, he said. After she left, Jacob did what had become his quiet ritual. One last walkthrough of the spa. The lights were dimmed now, the hallways peaceful. He stepped into room 3 and flipped the dimmer switch. No flicker. He checked the laundry closet. No leaks, no damp smell. At the front desk, a brand new employee handbook rested in a clear acrylic stand. Bold cover, clear policies, direct reporting lines, anonymous feedback channels. No more gray areas. He paused behind the desk and looked up. There it was, the framed photo. The original spa. Just one room. A single massage table. A handwritten sign taped to the window that read, "Intro sessions, $35.00." Jacob stared at it for a long time. He remembered that night, scrubbing the floor past midnight, heart pounding, terrified no one would show up, terrified no one would believe in what he was trying to build. Back then he thought the hardest part was starting. But now he understood. The hardest part is staying close. Staying close to the purpose, the people, the reason why. He turned off the lights. Outside, the parking lot was empty. The sun had disappeared behind the hills, leaving only the final streaks of gold across the horizon. Jacob climbed into his car, started the engine, and pulled away from the curb. This time, he wasn't walking away. He was coming back to where he always should have been.